You know, there's this word that I keep seeing time and time again in this country. It's everywhere, from the name itself to the clothes, even the place where I'm at right now. That word, of course, is Han. For example, Hanguk, Hangul, Hanbok, Hangang, even Hanyang. So I start wondering, why is it found everywhere and what does it even mean? South Korea is called Hanguk, which literally means country of the Han. But for most of its history, the Korean peninsula is actually called Joseon, which comes from the Joseon dynasty, and before that it is called Goryeo, which is where the western name for Korea comes from. The name Hanguk is actually a surprisingly recent invention. In 1897, the last king of Joseon looked at what was happening to his country. Japan was closing in, and the empire was crumbling. He made a decision. He declared himself emperor and renamed his kingdom Daehan Jaeguk, the empire of the great Han people. But what does he mean by this? What does Han mean in this context? This Han specifically comes from a Chinese character. This specific character means great, first, or leader. So when King Gojong renamed his empire Daehan Jaeguk, he wasn't just speaking a nice name. He was reaching back into history and saying, "We have always been here. We have always been great, and we are not yours to take." When Japan annexed Korea, the independence fighters kept the name. Their government in exile called itself Daehanminguk Imsi Jongbu, and when Korea was finally liberated in 1945, the peninsula was divided. The North and the South made completely different choices about what to call themselves. The North did not call themselves the country of Han, but they went back to Joseon, the old dynasty name. The South chose Han. In 1948, Ri Sinman formally named the new republic Daehanminguk, the Great Han People's Republic. He was deliberately continuing the line from Gojong and from the independence movement, and from that it became Hanguk, country of the Han, the great, the first, the leader. But there's another Han that I haven't mentioned yet. It has the same sound, but the character is written differently. This character has no direct English translation, but it represents an identity concept that is distinctly Korean. This Han specifically represents a feeling of unresolved resentment against injustice suffered, a feeling of helplessness against overwhelming odds, and a stubborn urge to right the wrong. Not one emotion, but all of them at once, with nowhere to go. This concept itself is not ancient. It was not yet well established until last century, and it didn't even exist in the Joseon dynasty. It only existed after the colonization of Korea. Under Japanese rule, Koreans were told their language was inferior. Schools banned it, children were punished for speaking Korean, then their names were taken. Families forced to replace Korean names with Japanese ones, then their history was rewritten. Korean civilization reframed as backwards, stagnant, and incapable of progress without Japan's help. For 35 years, an entire people were systematically told, "What you are is not enough. What you came from doesn't matter. Who you were before us, forget it." And then Japan left, and Koreans were free, but free with a question that had no easy answer. Who are we now? The language came back, and the names came back, but the wound and the humiliation of having your identity taken away, that stayed. That feeling needed a name. Korean scholars and writers adapted this concept through the 20th century. By the 70s, under the regime of Park Chung-hee, it was being actively taught in schools. A Korean poet wrote, "We Koreans were born from the womb of Han and brought up in the womb of Han." What colonization had done to the Korean psyche, Koreans claim as identity, as something that belonged to them and no one else. In 1993, a film called Sopyeon-jae was released. It's a story about a pansori family, a traditional form of Korean musical storytelling. The daughter of the family was blinded, so her grief makes her singing more pure. Through this, she was able to feel and understand what is called Han, the driving emotion in pansori. The movie was a success despite the grim themes. but it showed the country something that only existed in concept before. The democracy movement carried it too. Koreans who stood in the streets against military dictators weren't just protesting policy, they were refusing. That same stubborn refusal at the core of Han. The conviction that is what is happening cannot simply be accepted. They brought them to precedence through sheer collective will. That is Han. Two different characters, but the same sound. One means greatness, and the other means grief that refuses to resolve. The country that is named after the first, but is shaped by the second. Korea today is wealthy, globally dominant in culture in a way almost no one predicted. The country that was colonized, divided, and rebuilt through a dictatorship. I'm just thinking maybe the Han never left. It just changed shape, like the burnout culture, the impossible standards, and the pressure that starts in childhood and never stops. This country has already achieved greatness, but it cannot quite rest yet.